Okay, are we live?
Yes, we are live.
And we are live and lemony scented. Welcome back to the podcast that, for now, we're going to call a special presentation, or
Ooh, actually, I like that a lot.
special. I was going with either a special presentation or Alf will not be seen tonight, or something like that. But
oh, actually, I like that too. Oh, damn. You know what we should do? Okay, if we do a special presentation, we have to get that, that HBO noise.
oh yeah, the
that
CBS.
CBS. That's it.
I wish we could make that
the one
our
that
name.
I
wish we could make our name the dun 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 sound, but you can't really write that down.
Yeah, that's the only problem. We'd be like, Prince.
Yeah,
when he wasn't Prince.
Yeah, when he was the artist formerly known as Prince, which was a really complicated way, as it turns out, of getting out of a bad recording deal.
Was it really?
Yeah,
that was the whole thing.
Yeah, he wasn't just being super pretentious. It was because he wanted to get out of a deal by changing his name to something that they couldn't write down.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very clever, and in fact, that sounds like the way you get out of a deal with, like, the devil.
Yes. Which is recording industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that far off when you think about it, but that is exactly the sort of thing was like, curse you, Prince,
Oh, hey, all right, Prince, this time I take tops and you take bottoms. And so Prince planted turnips. How do you like my turnips?
Wow, nice Prince impression. That actually.
And he spelled turnips with the numeral 2. Turnips.
Anyway, tonight on a special presentation, or Alf will not be seen tonight. We should have a vote on that.
Yes,
okay.
Everyone yell real loud. Which one do you like? Do you like a special presentation? Okay, do you like Alf will not be seen tonight?
Well, according to the Judge-O-meter, anyway,
fair
tonight
unfair.
we are going to be speaking about yet another comic strip that became an animated special, and tonight we're talking about Cathy.
Yes, Cathy, which was written and created by Cathy Guzweet? How do you pronounce her name? Do you know?
I've always called her Jizizowitz, but I am pretty sure that's not right.
Guy Sweet? I don't know.
I've only ever seen it spelled. So
and I've never seen another Jizweet, so
yeah. In preparation for this episode, I probably should have looked that up, because I did notice that she appeared on The Tonight Show. Presumably Johnny Carson said her name when he introduced her, but I couldn't be bothered to actually watch the clip, so it's a mystery.
Yeah, well, we'll take care of that Cathy Toot Sweet, as it were.
Would you welcome Cathy Guzweet?
Yeah, but anyway,
They can't all
Cathy
be winners, folks.
is a comic that I mentioned in our first podcast, being really interested in talking about, and that's because when I was a kid, I hated Cathy. I thought it was the worst comic in the newspaper, and I think there's a lot to criticize about Cathy. We'll get into that in a little bit, but I also think I was being unfair to Cathy in some ways, and
I would agree with you there, and I wonder if we come to the same conclusion after we watched this special, because I was surprised to find that I was liking Cathy a lot better after I saw the special.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. I found Cathy. Well, I liked Cathy as a character a lot. There's still a lot of issues that I have with Cathy as a media property. But watching this special did make me feel a lot warmer feelings towards the character that I never felt in reading the comic strip.
Yeah, and for one thing, I think when we were reading it, this came out when both of us were like 7 years old. But when we were reading the comics, I don't know if you read it all the time at that age, but I was reading Cathy. We started getting the newspaper more regularly when I was 10, up until when I was about 18. And at that point, Cathy had really sort of metamorphosed into another Dilbert. It was much more of a workplace thing.
Yeah, that's true. That's the Cathy that I'm familiar with. I mean, Cathy has always been sort of about, three major issues: work, food, and men. Yeah. I mean, I believe actually maybe four, because I believe Cathy did come out with four collections called the Four Major Guilt Groups, which were men, work, food, and mom.
Mom,
shoes. Yes. Mom, I think, was the last one. So, I mean, that's kind of been Cathy's bread and butter. But yeah, you're right. Workplace humor did start taking front and center a lot more in sort of the mid-Cathy strips.
In my notes, I wrote down how surprised I was that there was no friction between her and Mr. Pinkley.
That's also, that is interesting as well. But I guess
Mr. Pinkley is her boss, by the way.
Yes, yeah. So that's actually because the special Cathy is much more about Cathy's issues with her boyfriend Irving. Yes. And we'll get into that. But first, just one thing about Cathy, the comic strip, is, I guess, because first let's discuss, well, first of all, let's introduce our audience to Cathy, because Cathy has been out of the paper for a few years now. Mm-hmm. Cathy Jesuits recently retired after 30-plus years of doing the strip Cathy. So, Cathy is a single, go-getter, career woman.
I believe that's how she was described in the McDonald's ads, too, yes.
Actually, you're right. Yeah, that is exactly, I believe, word for word how she was described. And She's it is young. Accurate.
On the go.
She is a career woman in her early 20s, in the early 1980s, trying to navigate the pitfalls of having it all, both relationships and work. And that's probably a big reason why, as a child, I didn't gel with Cathy, because I was the wrong demographic.
Yeah, not only are you the wrong age, wrong gender identity, wrong everything. So
yeah. That's the thing is, when I was a kid, I mean, I didn't like Cathy, but also all the girls I knew didn't like Cathy. So I assumed Cathy was bad, but now I think it really is. It's not just a gender thing, but also very much an age and generation thing. Because if you're a baby boomer, then Cathy is kind of, or I should say, if you're a woman in your late 20s to early 30s. In the workplace in the early 1980s, then Cathy is definitely your voice.
Yeah, but were those the boomers?
Those were, I believe those were kind of the late boomers, the late bloomer boomers, you might say.
Leo, the late boomer, but
I think that was the baby boomers encompass such a large, like 30 years of kids or something. So it's hard to really define them, especially since our culture has decided that there are only two generations. Yes. Which makes things hard.
We had this conversation last time.
We did. I guess this is going to be a perennial topic.
But a millennial perennial.
Wah, wah, wah. We're big into rhymes tonight. I really do feel, though, that the Cathy is a very boomer strip.
You think
because,
so? Yeah.
It's, when Cathy is... Well, here's the thing about Cathy, is it's a very... Cathy's sensibilities are very second-wave feminist, where it's all about trying to have it all, career and family. And I think once you get into Gen X and millennials, they've realized they'll never have either of those things.
Yeah.
So Cathy doesn't speak to them as much.
Yeah, for us, it's like, just picking and choosing.
Yeah, exactly.
We would like to have it a la carte as opposed to having it all.
But that means that, when I was a kid, that was one of the reasons I think I just didn't gel with Cathy. And I kind of dismissed it without giving it a fair shake. There are other criticisms of the comic strip that I believe are more valid.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. Well, let's see who's in the comic. There's Cathy herself. You can always recognize Cathy because she has eyes very close together, shaped like an upside-down heart. And I guess nobody else in the strip does. I guess she's unique in that respect. And you always see her mom and dad who look so much alike that they're almost brother and sister.
Well, that explains Cathy's eyes being so close together.
And also in the strip, when we were reading it, a major character was her dog, Electra, who doesn't show up in this one.
That's right. I think Electra was a later addition in the strip.
Yeah, because everything has to have a dog in it.
Yeah, there was that later Cathy collection called My Granddaughter Has Fleas, which I believe is where Elektra is introduced. And I guess that I wonder now, looking back on it, if there's some meaning in the name, since Elektra killed her father and married her mother. No, killed her mother, married her father. What does Elektra do? I forget what Elektra did.
Yeah, well, the Elektra complex is the one where you, kill your mother and marry your father. Well, I don't know about killing the mother part in the complex, at least, but I don't know. I figured Cathy just went on a real comics binge and became a huge fan of Daredevil, but
Cathy. Well, I don't know. I can't see Cathy reading comics because Cathy has. I think Cathy's interests include chocolate and shoes, and that's. I mean, I hate to be flippant and be like, "Oh, women," but that's pretty much what she's into.
Oh, I would like to think that if there were a millennial version of Cathy, it would be, food, shoes, chocolate, and yaoi. But
that would be a much more millennial thing.
Yes.
So yeah, if the kids today were going to yeet on Cathy, then it would be yaoi would be it. I think yeet. I actually don't know what that phrase means, but I hear that it's used a lot for kids. Actually, I also realized Cathy is the only character that has eyes at all. All the other characters have just the dots.
Yeah, she's a Fred Flintstone in a world of Barney Rubbles.
Yeah, and she also has no nose.
Unless, I was going to point this out, in this in this special, you sometimes see her from the side, and she does have a little nose, so...
That's true. That kind of weirded me out, because I don't think that ever happened in the comic strip.
It's like seeing Dilbert with a mouth on his show.
Oh, yeah. Ugh. That was some bad energy there.
Yeah.
I can't wait to talk about Dilbert, too, though. So Cathy, the comic strip, there are a couple other characters. There are her parents. There's Mr. Pinkley, her boss, whom we've mentioned.
Yeah, sometimes she has a very inimical relationship with him, but in this one she seemed to like him a lot, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he got worse over the years.
I feel like Mr. Pinkley was never a huge presence in the comic strip.
Maybe I'm confusing him with the general from Beetle Bailey. I don't know.
Well, I mean, Mr. Pinkley's always there, but I feel like most of the conflict in this strip is with Cathy's mother, and also that woman who is basically the all-purpose salesperson who appears in every store that Cathy shops in.
Yeah. Does she always go to that one store? Is this woman like her personal Grover? Who's always like waiting tables at every restaurant she goes to?
It's like, I'm trying to think of an example, but yeah, it is that character who plays it's like the devil in Cow and Chicken, I guess.
Yeah.
Who's always there playing a different role. Although
it always has a name referring to the fact that you can see his butt.
Yeah. Now, actually, this is interesting. I just read this recently, that character in Cathy is never named, but in the, I guess in the heuristic annex, or not annex, what would you call that? The interpretive material for Cathy.
Okay.
That character is named Mabel.
Mabel, okay.
Which would imply that she actually is the same character all the time, rather than just a generic woman.
So in the Cathy expanded universe, she has a name. Okay.
Yes. And then who else do we have there? Cathy has two friends.
Andrea is the one who's the most proactive in this story.
That's right.
You can recognize her by her straight hair, and in this one, her running gag of attacking everyone with Banaka breath spray.
Yes, because Andrea is a feminist.
Yes. Also, because Banaka was a thing in the 80s that we don't see anymore.
I do love how 80s this whole thing is. But
it's
like we said,
it's wonderfully 80s.
It is, and it's not like. Well, okay, here's the thing: it's like it is a beautiful relic of its time. It's not like that faux kind of 80s that you get now, where it's like everything's going to be day glow and they're all playing with Rubik's cubes.
Yeah,
and the synthwave soundtrack. It is the 80s as it. I got a little
bit of that from the Bumblebee movie. And although I did really like the Bumblebee movie, there were places where it just felt like 80s, get it? 80s.
Yeah, it's like, hey, kids, you remember this? Well, it's back in Pog form, except that was the 90s, so never mind.
Sorry. Well, it was very early 90s, so if you were If you were in Hawaii, it was back in Pog form.
Well, yeah, because that's where the legend started.
Mm-hmm.
The legend of the Hawaiian slammer pogs. Now, Andrea, in this comic strip, I believe started out as Cathy's kind of spitfire feminist friend, but later on gets married and has children, and kind of becomes the annoying mom character of the strip, who's always forcing Aunt Cathy to deal with her horrible children.
So does that mean that Andrea was the one who got to have it all?
Actually, I think, was she? I believe she retired from the workforce and became a stay-at-home mom. So I don't know that, actually, because I know not.
I know she had babies at some point. I remember that part, but I don't remember anything about like Cathy being pressed into babysitter service or anything like that.
I think it was mostly just that, like, she would bring her baby, Zenith was the kid's name, bring Zenith over. Right. Yeah, and Zenith would, like, break stuff, and Cathy would be like, ack! And that was the joke.
That's something that doesn't happen in this special.
Oh, you're right, there's no acking in this.
Yeah, I always wondered what ack sounded like, and she doesn't ack.
Well, what's even the point? I mean, is it really Cathy if she's not acking?
That's like if Here Comes Garfield started with, I love every day of the week.
Garfield just comes on, rigatoni. My favorite pasta.
I don't like to beat up dogs.
He's like, John, I appreciate and respect you.
Go on your way, Spider.
Oh man, this is but wait,
Garfield takes over everything we do.
Well, you know, Garfield is the 1980s comic strip, or
he
the
is,
1980s funny pages is Garfield. So everything is in his very long shadow.
Yes.
Are there any other characters in
shadow?
A wide, yeah. I believe that was actually one of his books, wasn't it? Garfield casts a wide shadow.
That would be a good one if they haven't done it yet.
They should.
Are you listening, Paws Incorporated?
Yeah, but we want royalties on this one. So who else is in Cathy? That's about the entire cast, I think.
The secretary, but I don't remember her name.
Oh. Is that Charlene, or is Charlene... No, Charlene is her other friend.
I think it starts with an L.
Okay, then...
Well, okay. Frizzy hair girl who looks almost exactly like Dilbert's triangle-haired friend. Oh,
yeah, that's Charlene. So that's Cathy's work friend, as opposed to Andrea, who's her, I guess, feminist friend.
I don't remember if Andrea has works at the same company or not.
I don't think Andrea does. Again, no. I probably should have done some research into this, but it's Cathy, so
that's Cathy.
Whatever. Yeah. I like how there's like 30 plus years of Cathy canon, but only about 8 facts have been established, and we can't be bothered to actually remember any of them.
Yeah, that ties into what I want to conclude this whole thing with. But anyway, let's talk about the special itself, because a lot of this stuff is not part of the story. We mentioned there's no Elektra. We barely see her parents. Her mom is always a bigger focus in the comics than anything else. Well, right. Oh, and we never see the sales lady either. We don't see Mabel.
Oh, that's right.
I wonder if she'd even been established yet.
Yeah, I don't know. She does appear in subsequent Cathy specials. So maybe
there are 2 more after this one.
Huh. And so those are the main cast we have in this one.
Except for one. The thing that everything crucially orbits around is Irving.
Yes. So Irving, if we haven't mentioned before, is Cathy's on and off boyfriend.
On and off and on, and then eventually they did actually get married in the strip. So,
and that was the end of Cathy. That was when Cathy retired upon their marriage.
Actually, not when they're married. It was when she announced her pregnancy.
Oh, that's right. There was a bit of Cathy married life.
Yeah, we saw a little bit of their married life, and then the very last strip was her making a little hint and seeing a little thought bubble emerge from her stomach, going hack.
I get it.
Yes.
I'm just going to say right now, Cathy is too good for Irving.
Yes. The first thing I've written on my notes is Irving is fucking dog shit, and she should never have married him.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, I remember from the marriage strips in Cathy that it was like, God, they seem really ill-suited for each other. Obviously, it's a comic. You're always the conflict drives the humor, so that's why you get stuff like the Lockhorns. But that's all we ever get of them.
No, and it is absolutely clear that Irving is more devoted to his hobbies, especially sports, than he will ever be to Cathy. So
yes, and because it's the '80s, he's playing racquetball.
Racquetball.
It's like, remember racquetball?
Getting to Highline next, but
yeah, that was a. So that's the thing. So this special, it revolves around Cathy winning the coveted Employee of the Year award at her company. She is the best at being employed, and her company wants to recognize this. So she's going to receive an award, but Irving...
we don't know what her company does, by the way.
They get accounts.
Yeah.
And they get accounts, and then they create synergy, I guess. Now, I will say, and I'm gonna guess. This is just a guess because Cathy is based on the life of Cathy Jezizowitz, and in real life, Cathy Jezizowitz was an advertising executive before she became a cartoonist.
Oh, I didn't know that. That makes sense.
Yeah, apparently, she was creating Cathy comics as a way of venting about issues in her workplace, and her parents badgered her into submitting them to the syndicate, and that's how she became a syndicated cartoonist.
Huh.
And she was actually the vice president of her company when this happened, so she was apparently very embarrassed when Cathy first came out, but eventually was so successful, she resigned and devoted herself to cartooning full-time.
Well, good for her, you know?
Yeah.
Shoot.
Again, this is something that when I read it, I thought, this is such a boomer story. Just the idea, like, you could be maybe a vice president in a company, and then also become a successful cartoonist, and it's just like, man, well, living the dream.
How do you write a comic about the struggle to have it all when it all fell in your lap?
Yeah. I mean, not to denigrate the work that I'm sure she put in, but yeah, it really does. I as someone who wanted to be a cartoonist, when I was a child and just dreamed of that, I would be like, when I read that story, I was like, man, that is just the dream, just to have it kind of fall into place like that. So, yeah, I just feel like nowadays it would be a lot harder for someone to do that, to just kind of waltz in off the street. Though it's, in the 80s, that sort of thing wasn't unheard of. Gary Larson kind of did the same thing. He just wandered in and, got picked up. So
he got a lot of... Well, actually, he gave... Maybe we should save this story for when we do Tales from the Far Side. But as I heard it, he had to hang around a phone booth, which was the telephone number he'd given them.
The 80s.
Yeah.
Man. Again, life has changed so much.
Yeah. But one important way that life has changed is that the comic strip industry was huge at the time, which is why there were all these animated specials.
Yeah.
So it was a lot more likely that you just get picked up because there was a need for comic strips.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you look at these things and realize that a lot of these comics at the time were, I won't say revolutionary because they're comic strips, but they were new voices. Like, there was no comic strip for and by women at the time.
No.
Really.
It still isn't, really.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who the millennial Cathy is. Maybe if I read the newspaper, I'd know, but I'm just gonna...
millennials don't read the newspaper, so there's kind of no point in it. So
that's true. Well, yeah. Well, it would be a webcomic? Is there a webcomic, Cathy?
I don't know. That one about the nun?
The nun? It's oh, wait, is it the pregnant nun?
Yes, that one.
Oh, Sister Claire.
Yes.
I like how I was like, nun is. Of course, I know the one that's about it's a pregnant nun, right? Yeah,
yes.
I've read that one for completely non-prurient reasons.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, having read it myself, I too read it for completely non-prurient reasons because there were none.
Yeah. Man, yeah, but no, that's totally relatable for the kids nowadays to, read about, pregnant nun webcomics.
It's the equivalent of having it all in the 80s. Yes.
Yeah. God, I'm trying to think. Like, what is a? Well, I guess there's. What is? I can't think of an equivalent to Cathy now.
I'm trying to come up with something that the kids are really into, and it's either not as representative of their life as Cathy would have been, but maybe we don't need that anymore. Maybe that's something that social media has taken the place of. We don't need to see our lives sent up because we're seeing other people send up their own lives all over the place.
That's true. But I feel like that's the thing is like, whenever you see a comic or anything posted online and someone just replies with big mood or relatable, that's pretty much Cathy in a nutshell. Or most comics that were in the paper in those days. But anyway.
Wait, the new Nancy!
Oh, yeah!
That's the new Cathy! Oh, and I love it, so...
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. That is a new Cathy. She's speaking to the trials and tribulations of today's modern, a-go-go young woman.
Yes.
And Sluggo is lit, after all. But anyway, we were speaking of dogshit Irving.
Yes, Irving, who, I can think of no one who more deserves to be dissected.
This guy, okay, so Cathy is upset because Irving is going to be out of town when... No, I shouldn't say she's upset. She is dealing with this because she's not happy, but as a modern career a-go-go woman, she is getting zen about it. She's like, I understand Irving needs his space, he needs to do his thing, I'm not going to be upset about this.
And then her mom talks her into being upset about it, basically.
Such a mom thing to do.
Of course, her mom was absolutely right.
Yes, that's true.
And as she's doing this, she takes the 3 peas that Cathy has in her fridge and somehow assembles them into a full turkey dinner.
I really like that. That was a fun little sight gag, and really kind of a stab. I liked it because it's never remarked on, but it's a very clever, subtle way to kind of establish Cathy's mother's character as a mother. It's just very mom thing to do.
Being a mom is her life, and she does it well. So
yeah, exactly.
What did you think of the animation in general?
I enjoyed it. It reminded me a lot of the Peanuts specials because I believe it's the same person actually.
Yeah, Bill Melendez. He did a bunch of these kind of things. He did the Cathy specials, all the Peanuts specials, a couple of Betty Boop specials.
Oh, okay.
And a couple of weird original character specials called the Skywalker Kids. And
like Luke Skywalker?
It was in the 80s, so probably, but it's...
Is it like...
It felt like if he'd had a fight with Charles Schultz and wanted to create his own Peanuts gang.
Oh, okay. All right.
Which he didn't. He did Snoopy to the end of his days, so...
Yeah. Well, he brings the same charm that the Peanuts specials have to Cathy, because I actually thought... it's a little bit. It's really captures the feel of the strip, feel of the art, but I don't know. It kind of the characters kind of come alive. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, Cathy has a really well animated face. You get a lot of emotions showing, sometimes in rapid succession. I was watching. Yeah. There's one scene where you see her doing all these complicated gestures with her hands, and her hands are just these little 5-pointed flippers, but you get that from all. But the emotion she's making is very visible in all of them. So it was a really good way of doing much with little, I would say. I don't know if I wonder if Cathy Goosewight herself drew the animation models. I don't know.
That's a good question. One thing that I do like about this is, since it's animated, it does avoid one of the things that I've always disliked about the Cathy comic strip, which is reams and reams of dialogue. Because every Cathy comic has about a Bible's worth of writing in it.
It's really kind of Some of them kind of feel like that one scene in Crumb where you're flipping through Charles's comics and the images begin to disappear under line after line of text. And
it's
the characters are literally going peekaboo under the panels, under these giant speech balloons.
It's Cathy Jizzowitz, it's horror vacui. There's so much dialogue, and also because Cathy, basically, here's the thing about Cathy, is you read the first panel and you know what the punchline is going to be. There's never any surprise, but you still got to read like 4 to 6 more panels worth of dialogue to actually get to that punchline.
Yeah.
And it's so little payoff, and that's another reason that I always dislike Cathy, and I feel like that criticism is a little more valid than some of the other ones that I had, but anyway, this special avoids that, and that makes it a lot more pleasant. Now, as we were saying, Cathy's mother warns her about Irving, so she goes to visit Irving, and
she's all la-di-da, happy to see him, and of course, he's got another woman there with him.
Yeah, and Cathy, to her credit, takes this in remarkable stride.
I don't know if she was taking it in stride so much as she was in giant denial.
It was extremely weird because she has every right to be livid and basically to, fucking punch Irving in the face or something. But she does this weird thing where she's like, Irving, or I guess maybe it was that Irving kind of does a sob story about how, like, I gave up racquetball for you, but you're too focused on your career. And Cathy's like, Irving, you're right. I'm so sorry. And it's like, why are you apologizing, Cathy? You're right. He's done you wrong.
He was manipulating her from the start.
If my girlfriend was all like, I'm going to go to my job, and I was like, this justifies me, like, having an affair, I'd be like, I don't think she would. I don't think that flies at all.
No.
Yeah, no. Cathy she is kind of like maybe because she seems to think that this is a fling, and she's more forgiving of Irving at first until she notices that there is butter on a plate in his refrigerator.
By recognizing how well this other woman has organized his fridge, she is able to calculate to the day how long he's been seeing her.
And so now, Cathy
something about that reminds me of something kind of creepy that my dad keeps telling me, which is he says, you shouldn't be using fabric softener. If women smell that you're using it, they'll think you're married.
That's interesting.
Also, you shouldn't wash your hair. Women will think you're married.
I feel like this is all tying into those Reddit posts that have been going around where guys are like, I'm not going to wipe my butt after I use a toilet. That's gay. Just like... but basically, yeah. So what we've learned from Cathy is men are complete helpless slobs who need a woman to, take care of them.
Yeah, men are really trying to date a new mom.
Yeah, well, I guess when you think about it, Cathy's not wrong on this. Men are trash. And Irving is the trashiest of them all.
Irving is garbage.
After this is
the
real...
We Hate Irving show. That's the new name for this podcast. The We Hate
No
Irving
Irvings. Show. Yeah. Irving is just the... I never saw in the comic strip what Cathy saw in Irving, because he is basically a stereotypical man who likes man things like sports and Bruce Springsteen, and that's about it. Because Irving is now out of Cathy's life, she needs to find a date for the big award show. And how is a single woman in the 80s going to find a man?
I don't get it. I don't get why this was necessary, but maybe that just shows that I'm part of a different generation.
That's true. I maybe this was a bigger issue back then. I feel like going to an award show by yourself now would kind of be okay. Honestly, I can't imagine anyone in your workplace caring about who you're dating.
Everyone's going to be staring at my date. And
yeah.
And as we see, it ends up not really being a problem for her in the first place, but...
I think she listened too much to her mom. Her mom put all these ideas in her head.
Here's one of my favorite things I wrote in the note about. She's talking about how her mom has been trying to fix her up with guys all her life, to the point where there was a picture of the baby that was next to Cathy in the incubators in the scrapbook of Cathy's childhood.
Oh yeah, I remember that. I saw that scene and it's just like, well, the cishets are at it again.
This is, so much of it is about, Andrea's not wrong. We need feminism, and this is one of the reasons why.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I guess Cathy kind of demonstrates, what life was like for women at that time. Very much so. And it's I guess, I don't know, an accurate representation of the time period. And in many ways, struggles.
Well, if Cathy's a boomer, what's her mother? Greatest Generation?
Yeah, her mom would be Greatest Generation, right?
Okay.
Her dad was her dad was like a war vet, wasn't he? Maybe. I don't remember. Her dad literally has 3 lines in the entire 30 years of Cathy, so I don't think we ever get to know anything about him.
Oh, fun fact about the about this special though, her dad is voiced by a guy whose last name is Guizwite, so it might be her real dad for all we know.
It would make sense, because how often do you see people with that name?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pretty rare last name myself, and anyone you meet with that last name is almost guaranteed to be related to me somehow. So
that's true. And I've got a rare name only 3 people in the world have. So if you meet someone with it, at least my full last name.
Yeah, the hyphenated last name. Yeah.
The one that is literally both my parents' names shoved together. So it's literally just me and my brother and sister. but anyway, yeah. So what were we talking about?
Oh, well,
speaking of Irving.
Here's another thing. It cuts back from commercial and we get 2 or 3 frames of Cathy eating out of a giant burlap bag of donuts and then throwing it away.
I was really annoyed. I was like, come on, more of that. It was like, what? You cut off the good part? Then it's just Cathy looking at her answering machine. Yes. Which, again, very 80s. The idea is like, I got to get home to check my answering machine.
Oh, yeah, there's that cute little thing about, we have such incredible technology. We can get phones shaped like animals.
It was the 80s.
Yes. We have...
It's everyone's got a Snoopy phone or a Garfield phone.
Answer phone, speaker phone.
She mentions cell phones, actually, which
I was wondering about. Well, I knew they were I knew they were a thing in 1987, but they were suitcase-sized. Yeah,
so I feel like she was probably just she just looked up what kind of phones are there. Here's a kind of phone that nobody actually has, but it exists. So 3 scientists at MIT have this.
ARPANET phones.
Yeah.
Information superhighway phones.
We've got cyber phones, we've got astro phones, we've got future phones, we got space phones, we got nano phones. Yeah.
All this listing phones is just leading up to the fact that we still yell at the phone, "Call me!"
Yeah. Oh, man. Relatable. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so Cathy goes on a bunch of dates, and she doesn't actually go on dates. She fails to go on dates mostly.
Yeah, she keeps meeting guys and striking out with them. One of them builds a wall of goldfish crackers to avoid her. And
yeah, okay, so that
where was that coming from?
So Andrea, it is Andrea, I think.
Andrea is the one who's taking on the dates.
That's right. She takes Cathy to a sushi restaurant.
It's specifically,
which, of course,
the window sign says Sushi Cappuccino Pasta Incorporated.
Well, okay, so it is basically this restaurant is like one of those weird buffets where they serve both Asian and American food.
Yeah,
and it's all bad. And Andrea thinks this is a good place to pick up men.
It sounds like they were just listing everything that was trendy in the 80s. So it could have been sushi, cappuccino, pasta, cheesecake, potato bar.
Oh, God, I remember potato bars.
Yeah, those were fun, actually.
Baked potatoes were good for you back then.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. Actually, I remember that they were a thing, but I mostly know they were a thing from the Brunching Shuttlecocks mentioning them.
Yes. Love you, Lore.
So Cathy and Andrea go to this sushi cappuccino pasta bar to meet men, and they do meet a man. He sits at the table with Cathy, and they build these castles full of goldfish crackers to avoid actually interacting with each other, because I guess goldfish crackers are the appetizer at a sushi restaurant. They're fish-shaped, so I guess they're appropriate.
How many sushi bars had they been to at this point? I mean, admittedly, I hadn't been to one until I started dating in the late 90s. So.
Yeah, I didn't go to, Japanese food, I think, was relatively unknown at this point in the 80s.
Yeah.
As I recall as a child of the 80s, if you wanted ethnic food, it was pretty much Italian or Chinese. Everything else beyond that was just like, beyond the pale. And I didn't see Japanese food or Indian food until the 90s. And, even then it was fairly exotic. So
yeah, I mean,
sushi.
We were still experimenting with other kinds of Chinese food. I always think of the line where the mean stepmom from Beetlejuice says, "I can't believe we're eating Cantonese. Is there no Szechuan here?"
That's true. Actually, until for most of the 80s, you were eating American-style Chinese food.
Yes.
Which is, of course, the kind of... I think is actually mostly... Is it Cantonese?
Yes, Cantonese is... Yeah, the Cantonese is generally what was brought over early on in the 1800s. That kind of thing.
And then you've got like this bastardized version of Cantonese that is, made with whatever ingredients were available here in the States and adapted to suit, American tastes. And it's its own thing. It's actually kind of interesting because there are a lot of restaurants, especially up where I am, that advertise American-style Chinese food to distinguish it from the authentic Chinese food from China. Which is full of all sorts of weird, exotic spices that make Americans go, "Oh, I don't know."
Ooh, star anise. Never mind.
Yeah, it's like, and they're like, when you get like a hot pot, it's like, "Oh gosh, oh my, there's like there's pepper in this." Oh, I don't know. So sushi, I believe, was a thing. It's synonymous with the 80s in the sense that I believe like Gordon Gekko style executives would eat it.
Yeah,
but the hoi polloi wasn't too familiar with.
Anything that you could have with a 3 martini lunch was hot in the 80s. So,
and since Cathy is a career a modern woman on the go,
yes,
sushi kind of fits for her. But anyway, she doesn't work out with this guy at the sushi bar. So
also, I want to draw attention to the fact that every time they go out and do something, Andrea is wearing a scarf around her neck, looking like the girl in the Green Ribbon ghost story. And apparently that was a thing in the 80s too, was that women were struggling to find the equivalent of the necktie for women, and for a while there it was a neck scarf.
Oh, actually, that explains a lot, because I've seen a lot of old pictures of my mom at work in those days, and she always got that kind of thing that's like, it's like Fred from Scooby-Doo's ascot, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
What's out there? Oh, I didn't know that.
Or just tied, but it's generally just tied around the bare neck rather than part of the suit, as in tied around the collar of the top.
Oh. So it's more like a Hanna-Barbera character's tie.
Yeah, exactly. It makes your head easier to animate.
Or fall off eventually when you confess it.
Dun dun dun.
And when right before Andrea dies, that's what she it's like to her husband, whose name I can't remember. Or this.
It's all in the animated special, Cathy in a Dark, Dark Room.
It's the one that was animated by Guillermo del Toro.
Oh!
But Cathy goes to some other place. She tries to hit on a guy at an exercise class. And this one is interesting because Andrea goes on all about... Oh, no, Cathy and Andrea have this argument where they discuss where you're supposed to be in the classroom depending on your relationship status, which maybe was like a thing back in the 80s. I would kind of watch that and it's like, what?
I don't think this scene was in the version that I watched.
Oh, really? Oh, because basically Cathy's like, why are we in the front of the room? And Andrea's like, well, because it's the best place to, catch a man. And Cathy's like, singles are supposed to be in the back of the room. Front of the room is for people who are married. And I was kind of like, I guess that was some sort of secret hanky code of the 80s that I'm unfamiliar with. Yeah, but anyway, Cathy tries to pick up a guy, and it doesn't go very well for her. What are you going to do? So she's back to square one.
And then she gets set up with a blind date by, what's her name, the non-Dilbert girl. And
oh, yeah, so Charlene sets her up with some guy.
Yeah.
Steve.
And her mom gets super excited. It's like, Cathy and Steve with matching brown hair. Because Cathy just completely speculates that he might have brown hair. I don't remember. Did he have brown hair?
I think he was blonde, actually.
That's actually kind of funny.
That is. That's a neat. There's some cleverness in this, in this special. No, but he arrives, and I think Andrea happens to also be there, and he just says, "Oh, 2 women," or what is he? 2 for the price.
2 for the price of 1. Oh.
And he gets a face full of banaka.
Yes.
So that's the end of Steve then.
Yeah.
So Cathy ends up going to the award alone.
Well, not quite alone.
Humiliation. Not quite alone.
Yes. Her date for this is a bag full of Irving's stuff.
Yeah, Irving wants his Springsteen tapes back.
Yeah, so she says, well, if you want all of your stuff back, I'll have it with me at the event. Wear a tie. And he shows up not wearing a tie because he's got her tie.
Oh, that's right. It's in the bag.
Yes.
So he comes and they start fighting over the bag because Cathy basically wants him to sit there throughout the ceremony and, see her accepting the award. And Irving, who even now can't figure out how the game is played, just wants his stuff from the bag and is willing to fight her instead of sitting for 3 minutes.
Cathy,
sorry,
you can do better.
Seriously,
you can do so much better.
It's not. I mean, really, Irving is the worst.
I mean,
okay.
Anyway, let's take the one other man that I can name that I remember seeing dating Cathy. Steve Dallas.
Oh, that's right.
Better for her than Irving or not?
Better.
Better? Really?
Better. Well, let's. Their sole interaction is that Steve Dallas mentions to Cathy when he comes to pick her up for their date that he brought his toothbrush, which is considerate.
Yes.
It is more considerate than anything that Irving has done for her in 30 years.
It shows that he was actually planning ahead, something that Irving cannot do, even if it was planning ahead to sleep with her. Okay,
and also, assuming that Irving... so here's what we know about Irving. We know that he and Cathy have nothing in common.
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So I'm going to assume that Irving is a sexual dynamo and is just amazing in bed. Maybe he's a very giving lover. It doesn't really fit his personality.
No, he seems like he'd be really selfish in bed.
Yeah. I think he would be. I mean, especially given the time period. I love Cathy in this special, but she's kind of a doormat, and I really don't feel like she would express her needs in the bedroom.
No.
I don't think that she would insist on receiving as well as giving. But
I can already see a Cathy strip where where they've just had sex and she's like, oh boy, here comes the cuddling, and it's just him reaching over her to set her alarm so she can wake up and make breakfast for him.
That is 100%. If Cathy was running in something slightly less G-rated than Daily Paper, that would absolutely be a Cathy strip.
I should draw the strip.
Yeah, we should do it to and we could illustrate this episode with that. But assuming that, I'm going to assume on the basis of how a stopped clock is still right twice a day, that Irving, even if he is the most selfish lover, might be able to please Cathy by sheer accident, just because he's just jackhammering away and accidentally hits her G spot or something. I'm just gonna and that's why she stays with him.
Do you think she goes
now,
ack?
Absolutely. I think there are four. Well, let me explain them. There are 4 kinds of orgasms, as we know. There's the positive, yes, oh yes, oh yes. The negative, oh no, oh no, oh no. The religious, oh god, oh god, oh god. And the Cathy, ack. But anyway, so assuming that Irving,
did you get that from Gallagher?
Yeah. Have you heard that one?
No, that was a guess.
No, actually it wasn't. It was a joke that I heard back in college. Except the last bit was different, and was basically the last one my roommate was telling it. She's like, and there's the fake one. Oh Mike, and I was like, I don't get it. He was like, and they're like, I'm insulting.
I'm saying you're bad in bed, Michael.
I was like, well, I don't understand. Nobody says my name in bed. What are you talking about? This is a long time ago. But anyway, I was single at the time and kind of slow. But anyway,
I thought you met your wife in high school.
No, we met in college.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I don't think of there being anime clubs in college.
Yeah, we met. This was a joke told to me first year of college, and I met my wife second year of college. And basically, I heard this joke, and it was like, "Well, I'll show you. I'm going to go out there and get a woman." And
it worked. Shoot,
it worked. Yeah, we've been together as long as Cathy was a comic strip.
Wow.
Oh wait, no, we haven't actually.
No,
not quite, not yet. That would require us to actually get together when I was like 5 years old, I think. Anyway, sorry about this digression into my personal life. The point I was making
I haven't had sex in 10 years. Anyway.
So I bit him. I thought we were leading up to a joke there. But the joke not the joke. The point that I was getting to is if Irving is a good lover and Steve Dallas is pretty much got to be the same, right?
Yeah.
In bed. So it comes down to who's got better looks. Who would you rather have in bed with you, Steve Dallas or Irving, who has no last name as far as I know?
Can I pick Steve Dallas with the perm?
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot. Oh, you know what? He would be a giving lover.
Yes, he would. Maybe a little too giving. Yeah.
He was a very sensitive new age guy.
Yeah.
When he had the perm. I forget. His brain was scrambled by aliens?
Yeah, his brain got scrambled by aliens, and he became the opposite of who he was. And
I would absolutely, Steve Dallas.
I would sleep with that Steve Dallas. I admit it.
Yeah. So there you go. Did Steve? So wait, is Dallas's last name? It is, right?
Yes. Yeah, his last name is him. Okay. And Cathy's last name is Andrews. I only learned that from this special.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that before this. I kind of assumed that it was unstated because... Yeah.
Hey, do you think she's related to Archie?
Well, you know what? They are very similar milquetoast personalities.
Yes.
Who are also... Cathy and Archie are both desperate to be in relationships.
Yeah. Wow.
And, the difference is, and plus... Archie he's kind of a dumbass in the same way where he's like, I don't know, should I be with Veronica or Betty? And it's like, clearly the answer is Veronica, you goddamn moron.
What? Why Veronica?
Or are you a Betty man?
Actually, no, I was leading up to a joke. I don't even know. I don't know.
Let's take it again. Let's wind that back. Obviously, he should be with Veronica.
Veronica? Wait, no, I was supposed to... We did it wrong again.
We did it wrong again? Okay, say it again.
Never mind. Go on.
Okay, moving on. Moving on.
I don't know. It just sounded to me like, no, obviously he should have picked Shinobu over Lum, but...
Wait, you mean Shampoo?
Oh, no, that was the other series. No, I'm thinking of Urusei Yatsura.
Oh, they're different? I thought they were the same.
No, Ranma's from a couple of years later. Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that.
Oh, well, they're different things, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't know the Japanimation. I'm not a nerd. I'm just a guy on a podcast about Cathy.
How masculine and neurotypical can you get, really?
Yeah. This is a it's a manly strip, Cathy. For manly men. But anyway, they have this little fight, but then Cathy gets her award. She gets up on stage, accepts her award. Thanks, Mr. Pinkley.
Yes.
You mentioned.
Again, this is really weird because I remember her having a much worse relationship with Mr. Pinkley, and she never even fights with him in this one, except when, at one point he says, "You're not gonna let your feelings for Irving interfere with your big moment, are you?" And then her friend. And her not Dilbert friend sticks up for her and then says, "Please don't blow your nose on the corporate accounts," or something like that.
Yes, I thought it was interesting that Mr. Pinkley is kind of a non-entity in this special.
Yeah,
he's kind of in the background, so it seemed weird that they called attention to him at that bit. And I thought they were setting up a joke because after Cathy gets off stage, Mr. Pinkley kind of comes up to her and is like, "That was beautiful!" And Cathy bursts into tears, shoves her award at him, and then runs out of the room. And I thought there was going to be some kind of
it sounded coming. Yeah, it was like building up to a "you like me, you really like me," but no.
Yeah, but it doesn't quite come. So I'm wondering if something got cut, maybe.
A lot got cut. They cut all the parts where she eats donuts. So
yeah, which is unforgivable. I mean, really, that would bump this up to a top tier special.
So then she runs out into the hall, and Irving is there. She's surprised to see that he's still there, and they get into a kind of a venting match about each other. And when Irving yells, you can really hear that it's Rob Paulson.
You mentioned my name? Oh yeah, I'd say Cathy used to do the exact same thing to me, and it made me nuts.
Oh, wow, you're right.
You can really hear... He sounds just like when Arthur gets mad at the Tick and yells at him.
Oh my god, I did not even notice that, but you're absolutely right. He's got that same kind of glandular rage going on.
That kind of voice.
Yeah, that one. But Irving and Cathy kind of have this little tiff, and Irving is mad because it turns out that the woman he left Cathy for also nagged him in the exact same ways that Cathy does. So that brings them back together. Yeah,
because if you get dumped for somebody that's exactly like you, it kind of feels like a win.
I get.
Because I mean, you're rid of this guy who wasn't really good for you, but he's hooked on you. So
yeah,
that's a weird sort of living well best revenge thing going on.
Yeah. So it works. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, is this a happy ending or a sad ending? It's an ending.
Yeah. Cathy has this kind of nice little monologue that I actually really liked. I felt like it tied the room together, and it shows that depressingly little has changed in how we treat each other since the 80s, as far as any of this goes.
It's appropriate that this was animated by the guy who animated Peanut specials, because it does have that very same kind of bittersweet
melancholy.
Yeah. It's not a depressing ending, but it's not an entirely uplifting ending either. It's just kind of it's like, well, we're going to be doing this dance forever.
It's not a happily ever after, but there's an after at least, and that's enough.
Yeah, exactly. So that's well, I guess, Ethan, let me ask you a question. How are your feelings about Cathy, and would you recommend this special to our listeners?
I would recommend it. In fact, because, as I mentioned, I found myself liking Cathy just as a property a lot more after seeing this. And I started to think that maybe my problem with Cathy was never with the characters or the writing. It was with the format. I think Cathy would have been better in a longer format, perhaps even as a comic book instead of a comic strip.
I had not considered that, but it makes a lot of sense.
Because there was at the time a burgeoning indie comics by women thing, not industry, cottage industry, I guess you would say, going on. We had a lot of independent people like Bechdel and
oh yes,
what's her name?
And her famous test.
Yes. The Dykes to Watch Out For got started around that time, and there was another one that I remember called Bitchy Bitch that was really funny. But
wait, was that that's not Hothead Pison? Hothead lesbian terrorist. Hothead something lesbian terrorist.
Well, maybe no, I don't think so. But
I'm thinking of something else.
Yeah, I don't think this one was necessarily in the queer lit category. But maybe that was maybe that was another problem with Cathy, was that it was a little too aggressively white cishet, as we said.
Yeah, it's very much so about the problems of the white cishet. I mean, half of this is about like her mom, like.
Can you name a black character in Cathy?
No, none. It's a very white bread cast. Which, I can't fault Cathy for too much, since it was a style at the time.
Yes.
I believe the only comic strip that had a black character. Not count was there's Peanuts.
Yeah, there's Franklin from Peanuts. Then you've got Wee Pals. And
Wee Pals. Oh, I forgot about Wee Pals. Yes, Wee Pals. And then there was I think it was it Curtis?
Curtis,
or Crankshaft that came first.
Did Crankshaft have a black character? I don't remember.
Oh, not Crankshaft. What am I thinking of? The guy,
Funky
he's a cop.
Oh, no, Jumpstart.
Jumpstart, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if Jumpstart had gotten started in '87, but I remember.
I think that was a little later. So
yeah, it was a little later. And I always loved Jumpstart. That's one I'm sorry never had a special or a series.
Yeah, that's one that really never got its due. I think, because that was actually a very funny comic.
Very funny. I mean, I especially like the whole gimmick of how he gets around the trouble of changing the children's character models to make them older by just having one day preschooler Sonny taps toddler Sonny on the shoulder. He's like, "Hey, time for you to go. I'm replacing you."
That was a clever one, but that one kind of I remember. I think a lot of time.
And of course the Boondocks. Let's not forget the Boondocks.
Oh, the Boondocks. That's another. Oh, I forgot that got its own animated series as well.
Yeah, we got to focus on that one sometime. There are some really good ones to.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about that one because that is another strip that did not get its due. I think
absolutely not. No.
It was. Let's be honest, it was too threatening to white America. Because I remember when it ran, my entire local newspaper was full of angry letters from old white people who were all like, well, I really, I've got plenty of black friends. And but I just don't like these ugly pictures that you've got in the paper now.
I would have loved to have had the Boondocks in my paper. What we had was La Cucaracha. I don't know if that one lasted for very long.
I've never heard of that one. What is that one?
It was about this. It was a sort of Mexican-American point of view strip where there was a guy and his, I guess, imaginary friend, the giant talking cockroach, who was kind of a representative of La Raza. And it wasn't good. It wasn't funny.
Okay,
and it definitely wasn't. And it definitely wasn't hard hitting the way the Boondocks was.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting how a lot of these decisions were made in syndicated comics, where it feels like they were like, okay, we got to identify a demographic, and then we got to make a comic that's going to appeal that demographic. Only one comic per demographic. That was why Cathy filled the niche for women for so long. Curtis was for the black audience.
Women don't need more than one comic.
Yeah, they don't need one. And I feel like a lot of newspapers were like, well, we're going to get either Curtis or Jumpstart. We're not going to get both. And then
you're right. We didn't have Curtis in mine.
Yeah, I can't think of off the top of my head of other comics that specifically targeted, ethnic or minority groups.
No, not really.
Off my head, but I think that was something that came much later because in the '80s, up until the end of the '80s, the way we kind of looked at this is people were like, okay, there's women, there's blacks. Those are the important demographics. No one else counts.
Yep.
And then at the very end of the 80s, people started acknowledging that Asians existed.
Yeah.
But only East Asians.
Yeah, Corporal Yo, but you never saw anyone, this is kind of what they were getting at with the problem with Apu. I mean, it's not that Apu himself in a vacuum is a bad character. It's that he was the only one for so long. And now being, for a lot of people, being Indian is synonymous with being Apu.
When I first started noticing this sort of stuff, thinking how it was weird how Americans never came to the realization that racism is bad. It was more that we realized as different racial demographics or racial groups gain some political clout, that group is no longer safe to make fun of. But it's okay to continue making fun of other groups. So first, blacks, and then Asians, and then I think Latinos and Indians were totally fine to make fun of until probably about into the 2000s. Yes. I remember everyone thought it was hilarious to do Indian accents. Jamaican as well, interestingly, seems to be another one that was totally cool to make fun of until fairly recently.
Well, I mean, I've I mean, I can't think of anything that was making fun of Jamaicans. But maybe I'm just not looking at them. I mean,
well, I can't think of a specific character, but I just know that a lot of
that's
they'd have
kind of
incidental
kind of a problem right there is when you can't name a character. So
yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm sure. Well, I'm sure that I'm just not informed. I'm not looking for it. Yeah. Hopefully, there's some Jamaican characters out there in modern comics nowadays. I'm sure there are plenty of Jamaican characters if I was familiar with Jamaican comics.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be. I wonder what the comic scene is like in Jamaica. Whoa.
Yeah, that would actually. Now I'm kind of curious. I guess that's something to look into. Anyway, sorry, we got off. We sure did. Here.
But Cathy.
Yes. Was there anything else that we wanted to talk about with Cathy?
With Cathy, well, let's see. I mean, there's 2 more specials. What are they about?
Well, one of them is Cathy's Last Resort, where Cathy goes to paradise. Basically, it's Garfield in paradise, except it's Cathy.
But she doesn't get sacrificed to a volcano?
No, nothing cool happens.
Oh, there's another one, Pacific Islanders. We could still do the whole volcano sacrifice thing for years and years and years.
That's right. I thought it was interesting, and when Garfield goes to paradise, he's sacrificed there by their white tribe, I guess.
It's like a tribe of kind of. It's like specifically a sort of cargo cult based around 50s greaser culture.
Okay, I haven't watched the Garfield one recently, so for now I will hold judgment
because I just know saw it. So
yeah, a lot of cartoons do the thing where they're like, okay, you're going to be sacrificed by a native group that's very clearly supposed to be like South Americans or Africans or something.
Yeah,
but they're a little nervous about doing that, so they're like, but they're white people.
Yeah,
it's like, okay, that's. I don't know. I don't know. It's a thing.
Yeah.
And it's the whole. Well, let's just say that the whole sacrifice by native thing is a very problematic trope.
Yes.
No matter how you slice it.
Right up there with being boiled in a big cannibal kettle.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, New Yorker. Replace all those where you're just with cartoons where you're just sitting on a little sandbar with a single palm tree. I think those are fine, right?
Yes,
that's all good. Anyway, so but back to Cathy. There are 2 other Cathy specials. One is where she goes to paradise, goes to her last resort, and another where I totally forget. Something else must happen to her.
I don't know. Well, what would happen in your ideal Cathy special?
Well, obviously. It's so
maybe I shouldn't ask.
This is going to turn into suddenly. It's going to turn into when they ask like Waldorf and Statler, "How would you run the Muppet Show?" Well,
like 2 terrific 2 girls. Okay, that's boring.
Yeah, it'll be like 10 terrific girls. Yeah, it'll be like, well, clearly, it would be just an hour of her eating donuts out of that burlap sack. I have to say, like on a personal note,
Cathy
is something that Cathy's diet strips should appeal to me a lot for brilliant reasons because I like that sort of thing. That's my jam. But Cathy never does it right.
No,
like God, Cathy, if you have all the fat shaming that would be super hot if I mean not to be mean, but Cathy Jizizowitz is not that good an artist. I mean, she's fine for doing a comic strip. You don't need to be a great artist. You just have to you have to be an expressive one, and her work is good for that.
Yes.
What I'm saying is, I can't jerk off to it.
Well, I would say that one of the whole kind of the subtle joke behind Cathy's worries about her weight is that she's not freaking fat. She just thinks she is.
Yeah. Which I mean, it could be hot too because she really isn't fat. She's pretty normal.
Yes. In fact, I don't think there are any fat people in the strip.
Not really.
Yeah.
I guess when you think about it, they're all fat by society's standards. Unrealistic body image is a real problem, especially for women, and Cathy is tackling that head on. So. Good on Cathy. But yeah, that would be my ideal Cathy thing. It should be much more about Cathy going to the gym and failing at aerobics and being sad and going and eating donuts afterwards and acting about it. So yeah, that would be my thing. Also, obviously, no, and it would end probably my ideal Cathy special. Irving comes in and is like, Cathy, you're fat. Well, I don't like that. Blah. And Cathy will be like, you know what, Irving? I don't need you. I am better than you. Get out of my house. I don't need a man to be happy, and I especially don't need you. So, then
automatically the best one.
Yeah. I don't know. Anything that you would change if you ran the Cathy?
If I ran Cathy, let's see, Let's see. I would want to focus on her and her friends. I would like to see what they do outside of a work context and outside of a men context, because there really isn't that much else going on for them. I want to see the kind of, okay, my Cathy strip would be about her accepting that she's going to be single forever, and then going to all these, going to do all the fun things that you would never have done. Basically, doing all the things that would get Irving to be really interested in her and be like, oh, wow, Cathy, I didn't know you liked racquetball. I was like, oh, hi. But so maybe maybe it's not as self-serving, but I would definitely want to see something about, Cathy discovering herself.
Huh. I think that would be good. And like
Cathy gets a life.
Even had a title. If Cathy was as a comic book rather than a comic strip, she could really explore these themes. And I think that would, I think, you got me thinking. I really think you're right. This Cathy would have been a lot better served as a comic book.
Yeah. Because I think that it's fun. It's better if there isn't the pressure to have a joke every 4 panels. Especially because Cathy jokes generally sort of follow that BC thing where she just defines a word at the end of it. Cathy works herself into a tizzy over Oreos or whatever, and then finally says, Oreos, the solution to all of life's problems.
Yeah, or it'll be something like mom, a 3-letter word for guilt.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So anyway,
now I'm imagining Peter or BC just stepping on a rock that says Cathy, and it dispenses a Cathy strip.
Then they just throw it in the ocean. It goes across. The next day, another one floats back, and it's like
it just says "ack."
Okay, so that is our critical reassessment of Cathy.
Yes. Thank you for joining us for our special presentation.
Oh, I can't do the thing. We'll just edit it in here.
Stay tuned for Mr. Belvedere.
And Amazing Stories. It's animated this week.
Oh, Family Dog!
Yeah. Oh, God. Oh, that's another thing. All right. I think we're ready to put this in the bag?
Yeah, let's put it in the can. Yeah.
All right. That's right, can. All right. And should we say anything about other places people can see us?
So, Mike, where can people see more of your work?
Okay, so if you don't already know, visit www.guttersnipecomic.com for more text games, hilariousness, and of course, comics, which is the sort of thing we're talking about right here.
We love comics, and it shows.
Yes, exactly. And Ethan, where are you on the internet these days?
You can find me at thehungryreader.com, where you can see my videos where I dissect Oz books and many other beloved children's stories. And also, while you're looking at my stuff, be sure to check out my amazing new novel, Joy Traveler, which is available at the link below at bogleech.com.
All right, and we're signing off.
Yep. Oh, let's not forget, we have to threaten people who don't...
Oh yeah, please like, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yes, listen to our stuff, and if you're not paying our dues, we will continue to slander you. For example, ExpressVPN, they will turn your computer into a Bitcoin mine.
Oh, I don't like that. I like that. I that's the opposite of what I want. All right, and good night, everybody.
Good night. Ah!